Sometimes in the weird and wonderful world of Hollywood, there are things included in movies that seem a little out of place, a little forced. Certain lines of dialogue, props, pieces of music, or celebrity cameos that just don't fit. Often this can be put down to poor filmmaking or desperation, but these things can also be included simply for the fun of it. In this video, we're going to run through a list of some of the best in-jokes in movie history. Here are 10 movie inside jokes you didn't get. Spider-Man 2. The Spider-Man trilogy that starred Tobey Maguire as the web-slinging superhero was of course directed by Sam Raimi. Raimi was previously best known for creating and directing the Evil Dead series of movies, and in 2004's Spider-Man 2 there was an entire scene that quite hilariously took its visual cues from those cult horror movies. When the presumed dead Otto Octavius was being prepared for post-mortem surgery, his mechanical arms developed sentience and attacked the doctors who were present. In the most blatant callback to the Evil Dead movies, one of those doctors reached for a chainsaw, as wielded by Bruce Campbell's Ash Williams, and used it in a failed attempt to escape the clutches of the mechanical arm that had a hold of him. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. When movie franchises have writers and actors in common with each other, they'll often make fun references to each other. And a good example of that comes from 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. With George Lucas having written the movie's story and Harrison Ford aka Han Solo in the starring role, Star Wars references were guaranteed to happen. The movie's opening took place in a Japanese nightclub called Club Obi-Wan, a reference to the Jedi first played by Sir Alec Guinness in 1977's A New Hope.
Wow, holy smoke!
Terminator 2 Judgment Day. 1991's Terminator 2 Judgment Day saw the return of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the titular cyborg, only this time around he was the good guy.
Come with me if you want to live.
While trying to prevent Robert Patrick's T-1000 from killing Edward Furlong's John Connor, Arnie's character stalked the liquid metal robot through a shopping mall. Carrying a box of roses to disguise his intentions, Arnie ultimately pulled a huge gun from the box and used it to attack Patrick's character. A gun in a box of roses. Get it? This was actually a very subtle and clever nod to the legendary American rock band that performed the movie's theme song, You Could Be Mine. Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. Home Alone 2 was the New York-based sequel to 1991's Home Alone.
Yikes, I did it again.
This time around, Macaulay Culkin's Kevin McAllister was left to survive on his own in the Big Apple, as opposed to his own Chicago home. Kevin uses his father's credit card to take up residency at the Plaza Hotel, which was then owned by current US presidential candidate Donald Trump. As Kevin arrives at the hotel, he asks a fellow visitor for directions to the lobby. Who was that fellow visitor? It was none other than Mr. Trump himself. How could you possibly miss that awful trademark hair? Scream. It could be argued that 1996's Scream is in itself one big long in-joke, but this one is just so great that we couldn't not include it here. In a scene in Westboro High School, the janitor is wearing clothes reminiscent of an iconic character from another Wes Craven movie, Freddy Krueger of A Nightmare on Elm Street fame. It was a fairly blatant reference, but what wasn't so blatant was that the character, who was credited as Fred, was actually played by a heavily disguised Craven himself. Shaun of the Dead. 2004's Shaun of the Dead is a brilliant British horror comedy that pays tribute to the zombie movies of old. The movie's writer and star, Simon Pegg, is a huge fan of the zombie genre, and that was clearly evident. A clever reference to George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead came in the form of a quote by Nick Frost's character Ed. When Pegg's character Shaun was speaking to his mother in the movie, amid the zombie apocalypse, Ed shouted, "We're coming to get you, Barbara!" This line was paraphrased from the famous "They're coming to get you, Barbara" quote, which Russell Streiner's Johnny Blair used to scare his sister in the aforementioned 1968 classic.
Drink, I like it.
Thor. Marvel's Cinematic Universe movies are always full of in-jokes, Easter eggs, and fun references, to the point that we could make an entire separate list with such examples. And one of the best came in 2011's Thor. The movie saw the blossoming of the perennially reviled relationship between Chris Hemsworth's Thor and Natalie Portman's Jane Foster. At one point, Foster lends Thor a t-shirt that she says belonged to an ex-boyfriend named Donald Blake. Fans of the Thor comic books will have realized that this is a reference to the human alter ego of the Asgardian in the character's earlier years. Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is the second movie in Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg's Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, the first being the previously mentioned Shaun of the Dead. Coming 2 years after the brilliant horror comedy in 2006, Hot Fuzz made a blink-and-you'll-miss-it reference to it. When Nick Frost's PC Danny Butterman was browsing a DVD bargain bin at the local supermarket, a copy of a movie called Zombies Party could be seen lying at the bottom of it. In reality, Zombies Party was actually the name by which Shaun of the Dead was released in some countries. I Am Legend. Back in 2007, when I Am Legend was released, a Batman vs Superman movie was still nothing more than a dream. The idea had been conceived, I Am Legend producer Akiva Goldsman had in fact been working on the project, but putting it into practice was a long way off. Goldsman's involvement in the failed project resulted in the inclusion of a fun in-joke in the Will Smith movie. A Times Square movie poster showing Batman and Superman's respective logos overlapping each other could be seen in the background. Of course, the movie has finally become a reality here in 2016, but back then it was almost as if Warner Brothers were saying the only chance of this movie happening is in a fictional post-apocalyptic world. Guardians of the Galaxy. 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy movie was genuinely teeming with in-jokes and fun references, even more so than the average comic book movie, which is really saying something. One of the more subtle examples was the name of the ship owned by Chris Pratt's Star-Lord in the movie. It was called the Milano, which was a cute nod to the fact that director James Gunn used to have a huge childhood crush on actress Alyssa Milano, the gorgeous star of shows like Melrose Place and Charmed. Thanks for watching our list of 10 movie inside jokes you didn't get. Did you spot these on your first viewing? Did we leave any major examples out? Let us know in the comment section below, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more great videos like this one.